In this analysis video, we're going to take a look at the swing of Dustin Johnson. Now, Dustin Johnson is a driving machine and put on an amazing display this year at the US Open, winning his first major. Last year at Chambers Bay, he put on an equally impressive round in terms of ball striking, and his putter just let him down a little bit. This year he made enough quality putts to really capitalize on his brilliant ball striking. In this video, we're going to take a look at a few things that he does in the downswing that make him such an exceptional driver of the golf ball, and ways that you can emulate some of those key movements and put them in your own swing. Everyone who plays golf loves to drive the ball far and straight. Dustin Johnson is able to capitalize on his physical abilities and drive the ball better than anyone in the modern game. This year at the US Open, he was averaging about 20 yards further than everybody else in the field. Yet he hit a staggeringly high percentage of fairways given how far he hits the golf ball. So what does Dustin do that make him such a great driver of the golf ball? We're going to talk about three things that he does. He's going to power the swing primarily from his body. He's going to close the club face, and he's going to shallow his arms in transition. After we take a look at Dustin's swing, we're going to compare him to someone who's more of an arm swinger so that you can see some of the differences and how they might apply to your game. So if we look at Dustin's backswing, we can see that he gets into a really good athletic position up at the top of the swing. You can see that for all intents and purposes, he's kind of maintained his spine angle, or he's rotated the large muscles as he's created this backswing pivot. So he's loaded the muscles in his core, his hips, and his trunk so that he can use those muscles to start the downswing. Basically, his arms are going to be a lot more passive during the downswing, or during the early part of the downswing, while his body is responsible for creating the initial thrust, or the initial amount of speed. So as he starts into his downswing, you'll see that while he has tremendous sequencing, you're going to see that his lower body tends to initiate the downswing, followed by his core, followed by his trunk, and then you won't see his arms really extend until he gets very close to making contact with the golf ball. This will make a little bit more sense when we take a look at John Senden and compare the arm swing of John Senden to the body swing of Dustin Johnson. So one of the key movements to this body swing is the arm shallowing component. And here's what I mean by the arm shallowing component. So at this point in his swing, we're just going to make a little note of where his posture is, and you can see that his arms, or his elbows, if we were to kind of connect the bottom of those, are at a slight angle compared to his spine angle, or his posture. Now what we'll see is as he goes into the downswing, you'll see that he bends forward and actually steepens his spine angle. How much, you can't really tell by 2D video, but you can see that he has steepened his spine angle, or his upper body is bent more forward towards the ground. Now at the same time, you can see that his arms have slightly flattened, so the right elbow is slightly lower than where it was at this point in the backswing. So he's done this rotational arm shallowing movement, which allows for his upper body to flex closer to the ground so that he can continue rotating through the shot. That key component of the upper body flexing and the arm shallowing allows his body to rotate so that when he gets the impact, you can see that his body is in that tremendous position, facing more out towards the target and less at the golf ball. The more that the body is facing out towards the target and less at the golf ball, you'll tend to see more of this rotation side bend. You'll tend to see that the right right shoulder is going to be closer to the golf ball, and as a result, you'll see that the right elbow is going to have some flex in it. And so that body powering the swing is going to allow that right arm to really straighten through the shot instead of approaching into the shot. That allows him to have a really good wide arc width after the golf ball, which I've seen with my research looking at 3D graphs to have a high correlation between driving consistency. Now the other piece is, since he's rotating his body so much, that's going to create impact happening more behind his body or towards the right half of his body. As a result of the club not catching up in front of his body until after impact, he has to have the lead wrist flexed, he has to have the club face rotated more closed than it was at setup. That's what allows the club face to point in the general direction of the target, even though the club is well behind his body as it swings around the circle. The club being well behind his body allows it to continue in a wider position through the follow-through, which again helps with some of this flat spot as well as consistency that he's able to produce with his both path as well as angle of attack. So now we understand that having this great sequencing, having the arm shallow and having the club or the lead wrist more flexed during the downswing than it was at setup, those are all good keys to having a body-driven athletic movement just like Dustin Johnson. Now, if you decide that you don't want to have this athletic body-driven movement, then you want to swing more like a John Senden. So what we'll do now is we're going to compare the body swing of Dustin Johnson to the arm swing of John Senden so that you can see how these pieces fit together and which ones might apply most to your own swing. So if you're going to be more of an arm swinger, you will tend to see a couple common characteristics. A, you're going to see the height that they set at setup stay a little bit more consistent and more stable. It's one of the things that kind of drives me crazy is when you hear the announcers on TV talk about how a lot of Tiger's shots, a lot of the bad shots were caused by the upper body dropping, but they fail to talk about how Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy and some of the Adam Scott and some of the more amazing drivers of the golf ball in our era have significant upper body drops. If we were to place the club at impact and just kind of lock it in a vise so that it's a certain distance away, you can see that both of these two golfers roughly have the club in a similar somewhat position, but their bodies are in totally different positions. The more that I'm going to rotate my body towards the target, the more that I'm going to tend to side bend. And so as this right shoulder gets more down towards the golf ball, you'll see that the right elbow is going to externally rotate and bend in order to accommodate for that distance. The more that your head stays the same height, the more that your upper body backs away, you're going to tend to see that right arm straightening to accommodate the increased distance between the shoulder and the golf ball. When the shoulder is closer to the golf ball, as Dustin is demonstrating here, you'll see him be able to extend his arms on the way through, where with someone like John Senden, you'll see the arms are pretty much straight just after impact, and then as a result, you'll see the club pass and the body just kind of support the movement. So if you're going to be more of an arm-driven swing, or have more of an arm-driven swing, then you really want to swing easy and within yourself, or else you're going to tend to have face control issues and tend to hit shots that start well offline. The good thing about the body-driven swing that we see with Dustin Johnson or Rory McIlroy or Adam Scott is that they are able to swing harder while still controlling their path and face-to-path relationship. So if you're going to go more of this arm swing where you're using your arms to power and create the speed from the top, you're going to tend to see less body rotation at impact, you're going to tend to see less head drop, and you're going to tend to see a straighter arm at impact. So the less head drop, more arm driven, straight arm at impact tends to give you a little bit more difficulty creating a real long flat spot at the bottom, which does produce some consistency issues with the driver, especially if you err on swinging harder. So if you're going to swing hard, you want to be more like Dustin Johnson. If you're okay swinging easy, possibly playing a shorter club, you'll probably do better and fit better into more of a John Senden model. Now, the neat thing is that it's not a one-to-one, it's more of a spectrum. So if you are in this John Senden model where you're more of an arm swinger, the more that you can relax your arms in transition, power it more with your body, and get closer towards this Dustin Johnson move, in general, the more consistent your ball striking is going to become, especially with the longer clubs like driver and 3-wood. So if you're not quite sure about these pieces and how they fit, you're welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see more video analysis as soon as they're uploaded, or you can head over to Golf Smart Academy and get a free membership where we have over 500 videos helping you understand the key movements and micro movements that help produce this tour model, whether it be the Dustin Johnson swing or the John Senden swing, and how you can apply those key movements to your own game.